Unfortunately, she succumbed to her injuries and was later pronounced deceased.
The body of 19-year-old Dacara Thompson, a woman from Maryland who has been missing for nearly 10 days, is suspected to have been found. The authorities found a female body in Arundel County, which bore a resemblance to Dacara in appearance, but the authorities emphasized that the identity of the deceased had not yet been confirmed. On August 23rd, the police received a report from Dakara's family stating that Dacara had left her father's home in Lanham to refuel at a gas station last night and had never returned. Surveillance footage shows that at around 1:30 a.m. on Saturday, Dacara parked her Ford Edge SUV near Jasmine Terrace 1800 block in Heatsville on Sunday. The Prince George County Police Department discovered a female body in a meadow beside Route 50 in Arundel County. It is worth noting that the area where the female body was found is about a 30 to 45-minute drive from the location where Dacara abandoned the car. At present, investigators are still waiting for the examination report to determine the cause and manner of deceased of the victim. If you have any information, please contact the local police.
Dacara Thompson was a young woman whose life ended far too early. At just 19 years old, she had only begun to step into adulthood. She was born and raised in Maryland and was living with her father in Lanham at the time of her disappearance. Her family described her as thoughtful, dependable, and full of energy. She had finished her schooling and was exploring what direction she wanted her life to take. She was not yet sure of her long-term career path, but those close to her said she was motivated and eager to do something meaningful. Her family believed she had the potential to achieve whatever she set her mind to. Friends and neighbors remembered her as polite and easy to be around. She had a smile that made people feel welcome, and she enjoyed being with people she trusted. Though young, she carried herself with maturity and often gave comfort to those she cared about. Family ties were very important to her. Living with her father allowed them to spend time together, and he relied on her as much as she relied on him. She showed care in small actions, like sending warm text messages, and those gestures reflected her personality. People in her community noticed how grounded she was. She did not chase trouble and was not someone who lived recklessly. She valued ordinary things like home life, friends, and the feeling of safety. These qualities made her stand out as a responsible and sensible teenager. After she went missing, photographs of her began circulating online and on the news. In those images, she appeared joyful, always with an open expression. They painted a picture of a young woman at the beginning of her life, not one who would be linked to a homicide investigation. The memory of who she was remained strong among those who knew her. Dakara's life story was cut short, but she is remembered for her kindness, her potential, and the simple but strong love she gave to her family and friends. Before we dive in, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Drop a comment below. Where are you tuning in from? What are your thoughts as this story unfolds? Your voice matters. These are real people, real tragedies, and real lessons we can't ignore. Share this video with someone you care about. It could make all the difference. Welcome to Unseen Crime Dossiers, your home for spine-chilling cases, haunting before mysteries, and deep dives into the world of crime. From jaw-dropping real-life events to groundbreaking forensic discoveries, we're here to uncover the truth behind the most gripping investigations. Step inside, examine the evidence, and lose yourself in the shadows of true crime. On the night of August 22nd, 2025, Dacara Thompson left her father's home in Lanham, Maryland. She drove her Ford Edge to a nearby station to refuel. Surveillance records later confirmed she bought gas before continuing her drive. It was a routine stop, one she had made many times before. Afterward, she was seen walking toward a black SUV in the early hours of August 23rd. Cameras captured her speaking with the driver before stepping inside the vehicle. Investigators later traced her movements and learned she was taken to a residence in Bowie. That was the last verifiable moment when she was alive. When daylight came, her family noticed she had not returned. Hours passed with no sign of her, and eventually she was listed as missing. Authorities joined the effort quickly, alerting the public to be on the lookout for her. Flyers, alerts, and posts on social media spread her face across the region. 2 days later, on August 24th, her Ford Edge was discovered in Hyattsville. Inside the vehicle, officers located her purse, credit cards, and cash. Her phone and the key fob, however, were gone. The discovery suggested she had not simply chosen to leave on her own. The investigation moved forward as detectives reviewed camera footage from multiple locations. They pieced together her path from the gas station to the SUV and then to the Bowie address. Each new detail tightened the timeline of what had happened in the hours after she was last seen. For more than a week, search efforts continued. Her family and the public hoped for answers, but no positive news came. The trail appeared to go cold until the very end of August. On August 31st, police were called to a site along Route 50 in Arundel County. There, officers discovered human remains. Tests confirmed that the body belonged to Dacara Thompson, officially ending the search that had gripped her family and community for 9 days. The search for Dacara Thompson ended on August 31st, 2025, when law enforcement was called to a stretch of Route 50 in Arundel County. Along the roadside, hidden from immediate view, they located a body. The clothing and physical features pointed toward the missing teenager. Forensic teams were brought in to handle the scene carefully. The body was transported to the office of the chief medical examiner, where identification could be confirmed. Days of worry came to a close with an answer that no family wants to receive. The remains belonged to Dacara Thompson. The location where she was found gave investigators important information. It was not near her home or the gas station. Instead, it was alongside a major roadway leading away from the area where she had last been traced. Detectives concluded that someone had left her there intentionally. Authorities began reconstructing the final timeline, comparing the roadside discovery with evidence already gathered. The confirmation of her death changed the focus of the investigation from a missing person case into a homicide inquiry. News of the discovery spread quickly across Maryland. Reports confirmed the fears of her family and community, who had been holding on to hope. Candlelight vigils and gatherings began shortly afterward, as neighbors and friends came together to show support. The discovery also increased urgency for investigators. They now had proof of a crime and a stronger foundation to pursue those responsible. Every detail from the crime scene, from the position of the body to the items collected nearby, was examined for leads. With her identity confirmed and the circumstances pointing toward foul play, authorities moved to secure evidence and prepare for the next stage. What began as a disappearance had now become a criminal case with a victim whose story demanded answers. Following the discovery of Dacara Thompson's body, detectives moved quickly to identify a suspect. Their attention turned to Hugo Hernandez Mendez, a 26-year-old man linked to black SUV seen with her on surveillance footage. His movements and connections placed him at key points in the timeline of the case. Investigators gathered digital records, including phone data and location history, to track his actions. These details align with witness statements and camera evidence, building a stronger picture of his involvement. The information pointed to his residence in Bowie, where Dacara had last been traced before disappearing. Search warrants were executed at the property. Items of interest were collected, and evidence supported the conclusion that she had entered his vehicle willingly but never left safely. The findings were enough to move forward with charges. On September 4th, 2025, law enforcement confirmed his arrest. He was charged with first-degree murder and related offenses. Officials announced that the case was no longer focused on locating a missing teenager, but on prosecuting the individual believed to be responsible for her death. The announcement was made public by Prince George's County authorities. They stated that Hernandez Mendez was being held without bond and would remain in custody as the investigation continued. Court filings outlined the allegations and the supporting facts that had been collected. News outlets quickly carried the story, highlighting the shift from mystery to accountability. The arrest provided some relief to the public, who had followed the case closely since Dacara first disappeared. With a suspect in custody, prosecutors and investigators shifted to preparing the case for trial. Their task was to present the evidence in court, seeking justice for the 19-year-old whose life had been cut short. After the arrest of Hugo Hernandez Mendez, the legal process moved into the courtroom. Prosecutors filed detailed charging documents, outlining the evidence gathered during the investigation. The charges included first-degree murder and other related counts tied to the disappearance and death of Dacara Thompson. At his initial appearance, the court determined that Hernandez Mendez would remain held without bond. Judges cited the seriousness of the crime and the evidence presented by the prosecution. This decision ensured he would stay in custody while the case moved forward. Defense attorneys began preparing their strategy, reviewing the collected data, surveillance footage, and physical evidence. Their goal was to challenge the claims made by investigators and create doubt around the timeline. The courtroom process shifted into a series of hearings where both sides presented motions and arguments. The prosecution emphasized a sequence of events that connected Dacara to the accused. They pointed to the SUV, the Bowie residence, and the eventual discovery of her remains as critical links. Each detail was presented as part of a larger pattern, showing deliberate actions rather than chance. Media coverage closely followed each development, reporting on hearing dates, attorney statements, and official documents. Public attention remained high as the story continued to spread across Maryland and beyond. The court became the place where answers were expected to take form. Family members and supporters attended proceedings, sitting quietly as the process unfolded. Their presence served as a reminder of the human cost behind the legal arguments and filings. With the pre-trial stages underway, the case positioned itself for a full trial. The outcome would depend on how evidence was interpreted by the court and whether the facts established responsibility for crime. News of Dacara Thompson's death reached far beyond her immediate neighborhood. People across Prince George's County and surrounding areas spoke out, expressing concern about the circumstances and how a teenager could vanish so suddenly. The case quickly became a point of discussion, both online and offline. Local residents organized gatherings to honor her memory. Vigils were held where candles were lit, prayers were said, and people stood together in silence. These events were not only for remembrance, but also served to show unity in the face of a tragedy that had unsettled many families. Community leaders addressed safety concerns, reminding young people to be cautious when traveling late at night. Conversations grew about the risks of meeting new people, entering vehicles with strangers, and the importance of communication with trusted contacts. Social media played a large role in spreading awareness. Posts carried her story across platforms, urging others to learn from what had happened. Hashtags and shared images of Dacara kept her case in the public eye, ensuring that attention did not fade quickly. Schools and organizations created spaces where students and community members could talk openly about their fears and experiences. The tragedy became a lesson that touched many lives, sparking dialogue about personal safety and the importance of support systems. Community activists also pushed for broader discussions about how to protect vulnerable groups, especially young women. Their message was that lessons must be taken from every case to help prevent future incidents. The reaction showed how one person's story could ripple outward, affecting people who had never met her but still felt the weight of her loss. In this way, Dacara's name continued to resonate beyond the courtroom and into the lives of many. The case of Dacara Thompson left a mark that stretched beyond her family and community. Her story became a reminder how quickly ordinary routines could turn into life-changing events. Each detail of her disappearance and death reinforced the fragile nature of safety in everyday settings. Law enforcement agencies reviewed the investigation to strengthen future responses. The timeline, the role of surveillance cameras, and the coordination between different jurisdictions highlighted the importance of preparation when dealing with missing person cases. Lessons learned from this case were documented for training purposes. Advocacy groups used her name to promote awareness campaigns. Flyers, online content, and community programs carried messages about vigilance, trust, and precaution. These efforts were designed to encourage individuals to think carefully about decisions that might place them at risk. Families across Maryland began adopting new safety practices. Parents encouraged frequent updates from their children when traveling. Friends began sharing live locations and check-ins more consistently, creating habits meant to reduce uncertainty in dangerous situations. The media coverage ensured that Dacara's case would remain part of broader conversations about personal protection. Journalists revisited the story in follow-up reports, linking it to larger issues of youth safety and violence prevention. Her memory also became a symbol of resilience. Even in grief, her loved ones turned their energy toward keeping her story alive, determined that her experience would not be forgotten or dismissed. In this way, her case extended beyond a single crime. It became part of an ongoing effort to protect others, shaping how communities respond when someone disappears and how they remember those whose lives were cut short. As the case advanced, the focus shifted toward ensuring that the evidence was strong enough to withstand trial. Prosecutors refined their presentation, arranging witness lists, forensic reports, and digital records into a timeline that clearly described the events leading to Dacara Thompson's death. Court schedules outlined the path forward, with pre-trial motions setting the framework for what could be introduced as evidence. Each side prepared their strategies, but the charges against Hugo Hernandez-Mendez remained unchanged. The state stood firm in its pursuit of a conviction. Authorities confirmed that the case would be handled with priority, given its impact and the attention it had generated. Officials emphasized their responsibility to follow procedure, while also respecting the rights of everyone involved. The process was slow but deliberate. In the meantime, records of the investigation were organized into official archives. From initial reports to final filings, every step was preserved for public record. This ensured transparency and provided documentation for future review. The conclusion of the active investigation marked a turning point. Detectives who had worked long hours on the search phase stepped back, their role complete. The legal teams now carried the weight of what came next, as the courtroom became the new center of action. For the family, closure did not arrive with the arrest or the court filings. Still, the system continued its work, moving toward a verdict that would formally determine accountability. Each development became part of a structured process leading toward resolution. The closing of the investigative chapter meant the beginning of a legal chapter. The case stood ready for trial, where a jury would ultimately hear the evidence and decide the outcome. The story of Dacara Thompson came to represent more than a single tragedy. It highlighted the ways in which daily choices, chance encounters, and hidden dangers can collide with devastating results. Her case became a point of reference whenever communities discussed safety and responsibility. Through the investigation, arrest, and legal proceedings, her name remained central. Each report, hearing, and public statement carried her memory forward. She was no longer just a missing teenager. She became a symbol of the risks faced by young people navigating modern life. Authorities pointed to the lessons learned as part of their duty to prevent future cases. They stressed the importance of awareness, stronger safeguards, and quick action whenever a disappearance is reported. These measures were described as critical steps toward protection. Her community responded by continuing conversations that had started in the aftermath of her loss. Events, campaigns, and local meetings reminded people of her story while encouraging broader vigilance. In this way, her memory extended beyond the timeline of the case. Family members kept her present alive through words, photos, and remembrance. They chose to focus on preserving the image of who she was rather than allowing the crime alone to define her. Their efforts ensured that her name remained attached to love as much as the tragedy. The wider public also carried something forward. They recognized that one case could serve as a reminder for many, shaping behavior and encouraging careful choices. In this sense, her story continued to resonate long after the headlines began to fade. The conclusion of her case left an imprint that will not easily disappear. It stands as both a warning and a legacy, showing how quickly life can be altered and how important it is to hold on to the memory of those lost. Here at Unseen Crime Dossiers, we're driven by a mission to uncover hidden realities, honor forgotten voices, and keep their memories alive. If the story made you pause, reflect, or feel something, there's more coming that will challenge you even deeper. Make sure to hit subscribe, tap the like button, and turn on that notification bell so you never miss a case. We're dropping new episodes regularly, and trust us, what's ahead is even more chilling. Before you go, we want to hear from you. What moment hit you the hardest? Drop it in the comments. Your perspective matters, and your voice helps keep these stories alive. Until next time, stay alert, stay informed, and never stop seeking the truth, because every life deserves to be heard.